some mornings are like that. I just have learned that. Yeah, this has been a very interesting week on the whole national political level. It's difficult to make comparisons between what's happening with the Trump administration and any other administration in the last 100 years. It's just very difficult to find comparisons. I happen to enjoy it, but I know there are a significant number of people in our country and in the West who dread what they see coming. And those of us who are enjoying this era need to recognize the counterpoint. These are often people that we're close to and that we need to continue to work with. And that's hard. I find it hard. That needs to be part of our prayers. Anyway, speaking of which, it's interesting, I come back to this particular palette. It's called the Narmer palette. One of the oldest. Yes, sir.
Put your mic closer to your mouth.
Mic closer to my mouth.
Yeah.
Now how are we doing? You like that better? Okay. It's called the Narmer palette. It's Egyptian. Dates to at least 3000 BC. Some make it a bit older. Narmer was a pharaoh, king, tyrant of Egypt prior to the Manetho sequence. Manetho was a Ptolemaic, priest or something, shortly before the time of Christ, who made a list of all of the pharaohs of Egypt, and Narmer doesn't find a place there. So he's before that. And what's interesting is his mace. He's about to hit somebody in the head with it, and that, of course, is a defeated enemy. It's an interesting thing. In the Book of Revelation, we're told that when Christ returns, he will set up a kingdom age during which he will have an iron rod rule. This is the iron rod. Okay. Now you don't do an iron rod rule if you're working with 100% godly people who've been cleansed from all their sin problems. The so-called millennial kingdom is a place where people will be born with a sin nature and will live out lives needing the forgiveness of sin that comes in Christ alone, and many will resist. A lot of people have the idea that the millennium is just the beginning of eternity, but it really isn't. It's a whole different thing. And if we're going to reject the idea of a millennial uniqueness in the whole plan of God, then there's all kinds of other things that don't make sense. So, how did I get onto that? Did I start with the Trump administration? This is not good. Oh, okay. We've had an interesting week, and I'm not going to tell you that story. It began with visiting a friend far, far away, and came to its climactic moment with a pair of flat tires just south of Riggins, Idaho. Yeah, the rest of the story is kind of interesting. Turned out just fine. Ended up meeting a lot of new friends. It's a hard way to make friends. Let's pray together, and we'll I'm not sure where I'm going to go from here, but let's see what we can do with this. Father, it's good to be together. We thank you for the privilege that we have of walking with you. Teach us, Father, to walk in love for one another, even for those who oppose us. Father, thank you for your care for us in every way, for the realization that there is much good in this world. Father, we look forward to your plans for us. We know that you do good for those who love you, who are called according to your purpose. I pray that this day might be a part of that good purpose. We pray in Christ's name, amen. Okay, the attitude, 1024, we've got, some southern kings, group of kings, has decided to come up against Joshua. He beat them, all 5 of them. And the attitude of defeat is on the ground with the winning king's feet on your neck. That's not nice. That's actually kind of awful. And I would hate to be in that position, either side of that. Nevertheless, that's an important part of the function of the ministry of justice that God installed way back in Genesis 9. Genesis 9, Noah got off the ark. God told Noah, look, you're going to continue to have a problem in this world until you figure out a way to handle the worst kinds of crime, whether by individuals or by foreign parties. You've got to figure it out. If by man, man's life is taken, by man, that man's life must be taken. So the institution of capital punishment, and by extension, the obligation of military force when nation rises against nation in an ungodly way. Oh my goodness. The youngest archaeologist. Nice to see you. That's nice. And this is the picture of that. The government has the obligation to establish a ministry of justice, both by punishing the evildoer up to capital punishment, and by using military force to right a wrong. Military force is not supposed to be used for conquest of smaller enemies. That's wrong. And the judicial force is not meant to punish your opponents. It's meant to punish genuine evil. And it's a very important thing that we need to learn the difference. Joshua was not committing genocide. He was correcting an injustice, a gross and in fact deadly injustice. God called him to be the administrator of justice. And this is an important distinction. He wasn't eliminating Canaanites because he didn't like the way they wore their hair. He was eliminating Canaanites, or trying to, because that was the right thing to do. There really is a distinction, even if some of our friends can't see that. Okay, so that thing, that by the way is a really famous illustration, and one that we need to keep track of. 1026 says some of them were hung on trees in order to be put to death. The tradition, going as far back as we can find, is that anyone who's hung on a tree for execution is cursed. There are, I am told by people who think they know, that there are good ways to be put to death and not so good ways to be put to death. A firing squad is considered an honorable way to be put to death. You know, and all things considered, I think I'd pass, but.
But it's quick. But it's quick.
It's quick.
Where this, I think, would be.
Yeah, the firing squad is generally reserved for enemies of whom we somewhat approve. I don't know how that works. To be hung on a tree, either a pike or impalement or some kind of crucifixion, is considered an insulting, degrading, genuinely cruel way of putting someone to death. And it's interesting that Joshua used this for some of those kings. The cave for a tomb, complete with a rolling stone. In case you're ever wondering what a rolling stone tomb looks like, that's close. That's in the Judean hill country. Very rocky soil. Digging a hole for a tomb was a major project, but finding a cave that you could roll a rock in front of was relatively easy. So they were common. In some places, the rolling stone was, in a sense, institutionalized. So a cave was chosen, and the family would get a great big rock, and they'd cut it until it was round, and you could roll it into place. Get a whole bunch of guys and just roll this thing into place, and then when you needed to, you could roll it out of the way to add new people to the tomb. Joshua apparently took that kind of precaution with this tomb. All right. The Southern Campaign, let's take another look at this thing. We had it up. The first part of Joshua's campaign was an attack in the center to take Jericho, and then probably Bethel. And it led to the Battle of Gibeon and the Canaanites running toward the south. The campaign continued through the central hill country. Now, the book of Joshua itself makes this sound like it happened quickly, within a couple of days or weeks. Probably took longer than that. There's a lot of clues about that in the text, the things that happened over a period of time. So scholars are convinced that the campaigns in conquering the Holy Land probably took several years, and I think that's probably correct. Some of the stuff, the Southern Campaign, Joshua is described as totally annihilating all of the enemies that he encountered. And that's not true. That's not an accurate description of what we actually see described. Most of the Canaanite people were not destroyed. They were certainly not annihilated. Canaanite armies and their kings were destroyed. And the fact that they were relatively small armies is not the issue. We also don't know how big Joshua's army was, but Joshua's army defeated these relatively small Canaanite armies, and went around liberating, if you will, these Canaanite cities. The Canaanites, for the most part, stayed in place. Canaanite civilians stayed in these places. They continued to live in Gezer, in Lachish, we know certainly, and in other places where Joshua went. He didn't destroy these places and kill everybody. except in a couple of specific cases, Jericho, Ai, and Hatzor. So we got this southern campaign, and see that going. The little city of Libna is part of the southern campaign, and we've been searching for that for years. People these days know, a lot of scholars that have argued this. I don't have a dog in the fight, so I don't really know. Have suggested the place that we call Latrun, which is just up the freeway, probably 4 miles, 5 miles from Tel Gezer, right, which is right off the freeway, Highway 1 in Israel. And today, Latrun is occupied by a Trappist monastery, which is, strangely enough, famous for their wine making ability. We didn't try any, but it's right there. The Israelis have also put up a museum for the armored corps. So if you're interested in studying everything from chariots to the most modern tanks and mobile artillery, this is the place to go. They really, really do have an excellent museum. Mostly, a lot of the stuff taken from the various wars that they've had to fight with the surrounding neighbors. And so if you're wondering what the Russian small tank, I think it's I can't even remember. It's like a T-81 or something like that, a modern small Russian tank. Really pretty neat, stands about that tall. Run by 2 guys that sit side by side. It's the sports car of tanks. It's got this relatively small weapon system that's actually quite scary because of the kinds of rounds it fires. But the only place you'll ever see one of those is at the Israeli Armored Museum here at Libna, one of the oldest battle sites on Earth, and previews of coming attractions. Lachish is a bit farther south. Hardly anybody has heard of Lachish. It's about 25 miles from Jerusalem, and was on one of the major approaches to Jerusalem. Very important city in Israel's history on several levels. This is the location where I spent a summer doing archaeology, so I remember this. The thing up there on the very peak is the Israelite citadel. That's their. It was in ancient times. It was whitewashed so that it was visible from the Mediterranean. It was apparently one of the navigation helps along the Mediterranean coast. There are a lot of other things going on there, but this is the entrance to the city, and as I recall, I'm in that picture, but I may not. I might have taken it, I don't know, but I've got it now. Lachish is an interesting city because of some of the things that were found there. On the right-hand side is one of the prize finds of the whole Lachish expedition. This is an Ishtar, or it could be the Egyptian form of the Ishtar, which would be some other goddess. But you'll notice really fine workmanship. It's solid gold, very nice workmanship. It's a plaque of Ishtar with her palm fronds and her typical headdress, stark naked, riding a horse. And the nakedness is an important part of the whole Ishtar thing. Ishtar is the the grand prostitute goddess stroke goddess of war. So the horse is for war, and the stark nakedness is the prostitution part. This is really nice. I mean, you know, who couldn't just really get along with a lady like this? This was the chief god of the both the Egyptians and the Canaanites, different kinds of things, but they're important. The little thing on the bottom doesn't look like much of anything. That is a bronze arrowhead. Okay, we found lots and lots of iron arrowheads at Lachish. I was in the section where most of those arrowheads popped up, and we'd get one every other day. Just little, ugly, rusted out, corroded lumps of what might once have been iron, and we cataloged every one of those. Those came from the siege of Lachish by an Assyrian king named Sennacherib in the summer of 701 BC. And his army built a siege ramp, and then they fired a lot of arrows into the city, and the Israelis, the Lachishites, fired back, and we've got lots of those arrows, Iron Age arrows, arrowheads. This is a bronze one. The Bronze Age ended before 1200 BC, and the primary military encounter of Lachish with the outside world in a military way happened at the time of the conquest. Somebody fired a bronze arrow into the city. Okay, and let's hope that it wasn't, you know, some 14-year-old truant who was intending to shoot at a goat but missed. You know, who knows what this was. But it was fired into the city. And we found it in there during my summer. I didn't find it, but it was one of the finds that summer. The thing is 10 centimeters long, which makes it fairly long, quite heavy, and obviously a serious weapon. Was this a remnant of Joshua's attack? Well, we have no way to know. But it's interesting to see just a bit of that. Tel Gezer overlooks the Jezreel Valley. This is the, not Jezreel, but the Ajalon Valley. Ajalon Valley is the valley that comes down in the middle of 3, heading toward the city of Tel Aviv. So if you were driving from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv today, you would drive down the Ajalon Valley. And along your drive, you would look to your left and see a nondescript pile of dirt off on the left, and most people won't notice what that is, but that's Tel Gezer. And there's nothing to see there. It isn't developed for tourists, but you can get in. I'm not going to tell you how because I don't want you to get in trouble, but it's an interesting place to go. And the view is of this Ajalon Valley. That would have been the route, the lower part of the route that the Canaanites would have used to get away from the Israelites. This would have been their track. So standing up here, which today is an Israeli military observation point that keep track of what's going on in the West Bank in a number of ways. And this is one of those. Those hills in the background are so-called West Bank. That's Palestinian, more or less, territory. And the Israelis watch from here, and they can see what's coming. The stones on the right are monuments there at Gezer. We know this is the right place. The Bible and other documents say there is a great big city here, heavily fortified, that was a royal city. There isn't any place else anything like this anywhere near this, so this is it. And that's how we do it. Eglon, we're not so sure about. We continue to argue about Eglon. This is Tobit Mirsim, which is a possibility. There's nothing to see here. Literally nothing to see here. All of the good stuff is in the museum in Jerusalem. And the observations made on this were all done back in the 30s by William Albright. And long, famous, painstaking excavation, absolutely beautiful work, and I consider it inconclusive. I don't think this is likely to be Eglon, but people are again, and genuinely, who cares? Can I see the hands of anybody who cares? This is Hebron, largest city in the Palestinian-controlled areas. There's a new suggestion. Who are they? The sheikhs of the Hebron area have gotten together and decided that they don't want a Western-style state. They don't want a two-state solution. In other words, what they want is an emirate of Hebron, and just a classic Muslim town with the emirs of Hebron running the place, with complete recognition of Israel and joining the Abraham Accords and so on. It's a unique suggestion. I kind of don't think it will work, but hey, let's give them a chance. Hebron is the southernmost city in the Central Hill Country. After Hebron, you descend down into the Negev, and the next city in the line is Beersheba, which is the capital of the Negev. Hebron is famous for its pottery, and you can get anything you want in pottery in Hebron. If you ever do go to Hebron and you go to the pottery markets, be aware that the potters in Hebron are really, really good at producing fakes. And if you're not sure what the difference is between the fake stuff and the real stuff, the biggest tell is the price. And if they're really, really good fakes, the price will be roughly the same as the real thing, and the certificate of authenticity will have a very, very nicely forged government stamp on it. And if you can't tell the difference, don't get into that market. But you know, people do, a lot of people do. And it's hard to get into Hebron, but people who go to Hebron often go to buy the pottery. Okay, De Beer was also on this list. And we're not sure exactly where De Beer is. There's a lot of interesting stuff. This is some pottery, probably from De Beer. So just a summary of the Southern campaign. It started out with the defeat of the armies. Joshua then went to all of the cities and established control. The Southern coalition, for the most part, apart from the kings and their armies, survived. This is significant. Later on, we're going to find that the presence of so many Canaanites who survived would become a stumbling block for Israel. Many of the problems that led, first of all, to the division of the kingdom between north and south, and finally the fall of first Samaria and then Judah as functioning godly theocracies, is due to the fact that Joshua didn't completely destroy the Canaanite population. It should have been a genocide. And I know that that's hard for us as Christians to swallow, but that's what it should have been. It needed to be that. The people of Israel stopped with a technical defeat of their enemy. They should have obliterated their enemy. And again, that's harsh. And it's exactly the way it is. If you're going to win a war, you need to win a war. And Joshua should have in this case. Okay, what am I done with? I'm done with that one. Let us go back to Old Testament OneDrive on. Yeah, I don't know why this always has to be so difficult. No doubt because it's the way I've set it up. Okay, Joshua, 7 to 10, 11 to 13. Okay. Let's see if I can make this go. Present review. Okay, clear. All right, let's go north. 11 to 13 takes us into the next phase of Joshua's campaign. So the central campaign is 1, 2 is down here. From Gilgal again, Joshua is going to head north. There's a series of cities up here. Hatzor is the head of all of them. Dor is the southernmost. It's a coastal city. And then Aksaf and some others up here. And this campaign is going to take a northerly route. The other cities really didn't matter. Joshua realized that Hatzor was the biggest city in the group and the most impressive of all of them. So what German theorists call the Schwerpunkt, the key point, the center of weight. If you wipe out Hatzor, the others will go home. And that, in fact, is what happened. So we see the description of all of this. The northern campaign begins with a planning session here in Hatzor. Hatzor is on the main international trade route north of Galilee, the Sea of Galilee, about 5 miles, 6 miles. It's a real short trip. If you're staying at the Sea of Galilee, it's a real quick trip to make a close circle around the Sea of Galilee, then you do a longer circle north with a stop at Hatzor. Hatzor and Dan, and come back to the Golan Heights and do Katzrin, and you come back. It makes a nice couple of days, and you've done some of the key spots in the Galilee. But Hatzor is very, very impressive. Most of the tell has been excavated. It is clearly, absolutely, positively the right place. It can't be any place else for all kinds of reasons. And some of the stuff that we see back here, oh goodness, it doesn't look like much, does it? I don't have this. I do have this. I'll point out a couple of things. Hatzor, as we see it today, at this level, is a combination of Canaanite construction and Israelite construction. Actually, Israelite reconstruction. The city was burned, and the Israelites came in on top and rebuilt it. And the first time after Joshua, it was probably not occupied, because we see it coming up again during the time of the Judges, when Deborah, the judge, sent her Barak to go up and take Hatzor. He did. He destroyed the place. And the king had the same name, like a pharaoh. He's the Jabin of Hatzor. And so we know that that continued. But we see a combination of things. We see basalt, like this and this and this. These are foundations, okay? This and this, same things. Those are the bases for columns. And you can see by the size of the lady next to the column that column base is about 6 feet in diameter. Making stones like that is quite a project. and lifting them up to hold up a roof. So what we're looking at here, and here, is the remnants of the Canaanite palace. So this was the palace of the king of that whole region. And there's no doubt that we've got it. The most recent excavations in this area completely uncovered the palace area. And also uncovered the monumental stairway between the lower city of Hathor and the upper city. It's got a water system that's been set up so you can walk down into it and see it. Very, very impressive site. Really, I think one of the better places in Israel to go look at an archaeological site. But we have all of this. So Jabin set up a coalition, several other cities. And of course, the rest of the coalition was minor players. They were the cooperative group that decided to get together. This statue on the left is probably a statue of one of the kings of Hathor. He doesn't have a headdress, he doesn't have any of the god insignia, so he's probably there. The thing on the right is a storeroom. That's a royal storeroom where grains and other things, strategic materials, are stored. So this is clearly a royal city with all the trimmings. As you're coming up the road, this is a photograph I took a long time ago, before this road was fixed. This road is the main international trade route. This is, in fact, the Via Maris. I've just come from the Sea of Galilee, which is behind me, about 5 miles. And at that point, at the Sea of Galilee, the international trade route comes up past Mount Tabor and drops down to the Sea of Galilee, comes right down to the shoreline by a feature called Mount Arbel. And from there comes right up past the Mount of Beatitudes. I mean, right there, just goes right there, switchbacks up the hill, and at the top of the hill you look over and there's the church that Mussolini built for the Little Sisters of whatever, who take care of the Mount of Beatitudes. And they really are nice ladies. I mean, seriously, they do a nice job, but it's all Italian. From there, you go up just a little further and there's Hathor, and Hathor guards this main international trade route. This Israeli War of Independence era road is built over the top of a British artillery road, which was built over the top of the Roman road, which was built over the top of the ancient road. There's something about roads. In the years prior to explosives that were widely available for breaking big rocks and bulldozers to push them out of the way once you've broken them, people built roads where it was convenient to build them and where it made sense to have a road. I've been on roads lately where I think to myself, what sense does it make to build a road here, at enormous expense? Huge bridges and tunnels going through this and another huge bridge. Oh, okay. But this was the road. And something you'll notice, the left side, that's the main city. I know it doesn't look like much, but there's 28 layers of city, all the way come out to the top. And the top layer that we have there dates to Israelite times. So Hathor was eventually used that way. Off on the right, you see another, looks like a hill, but it's not. It's the remainder of the tell. The city was built on either side of this main international trade route. Hatzor generated probably a large portion of its income by putting a roadblock out on the main international trade route and charging a fee. Yeah. Nice string of camels you got there. It'd be a shame if something were to happen. Well, we can protect you on the road for another 100 yards that way if you do, yeah. And it's fun, you know, what can you say? Okay, it's, where is Madon? Okay, the battle took place at a spot called Madon. It means the place that's wet. And we don't know. I think it's probably somewhere near the Sea of Galilee. The main route goes just past here. This is Mount Argo. The water that you see just in the background is the Sea of Galilee. The great international trade route came around this spot. I'm standing in a place called the Horns of Hattin. And the main international route went through that gap there and then took a left to go up through the farmland toward Hatzor. I think Madon was probably up there. This makes sense in a number of ways. Joshua did a strategic deception. He did an overnight march, a forced march from Gilgal, and arrived in exactly the right threatening position at dawn when the armies of the Northern Coalition were just getting out of bed, trying to choke down some breakfast and going to work for the day, not realizing that this was not going to turn out well. And so it's from this spot, at about the Sea of Galilee, that these armies scattered in all their directions. Okay, Shimron is probably down in this area. This is a whole different site in the northern Jezreel Valley, and this is probably the general area. Aksaph is along the coast, probably in this general area. These stones are from the Iron Age, much later. Kinneret is, actually I'm standing on it. This is the Sea of Galilee, and this high spot is at one time the biggest city along the Sea of Galilee, called Kinneret. This is a city that Jesus probably pointed to during the Beatitudes and spoke of the city that's set on a hill. Because the biggest city there, and it was on top of its hill, its mound, at a well lit up city. It was hard to hide if it's sitting on top of a hill. Okay, what have I got? Nephat Dor is down along the coast. There's a couple of photographs of that. It goes all the way back into early Bronze Age, but the most famous parts of Dor are the Roman ruins. You see lots and lots of Roman ruins at Dor, or whatever. It remains to this day a fishing port. Okay. The Hivites living below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. Now, virtually everything in Israel is named Mizpah, so, you know, what can you do? Below Hermon, let me see if I can point out. Hermon. Mount Hermon is this long feature here. Dominates the Golan Heights and is the source of the Jordan River. Hermon is made up of this Enumenian chalk, limestone mix. It's a great big thing, so it's kind of a soft, big bump. Very nice for skiing, they tell me. The water that falls during the winter comes down as snow, so Mount Hermon often has snow well into the summer. And as that snow melts, it sinks down into this gigantic sponge that is Hermon, and then slowly finds its way out into Damascus on the Orontes River, north into the whatever valley. Okay, I've forgotten my word. North into Lebanon, and then south into the Jordan Valley. Most of it comes south into the Jordan Valley. There are 8 or 9 major sources of the Jordan River, and most of those have been settled. There's lots of pictures you could take of that. So all of them eventually were destroyed, we're told in 11. There were a large number of horses and chariots. This is a pretty good picture of a chariot. This was done, this is set up now at the museum at La Tron. It's pretty good. The 6-spoke chariot, the wooden wheels, essentially a wicker work or basket type thing for standing in. There are 2 soldiers, a driver and an archer. This particular one has 2 horses. That's standard. So this was the standard Canaanite and earlier Egyptian and later Israelite chariot. Once they came up with a standard design, it stayed the same for about 500 years. It really didn't improve much until somebody, and I don't know who, invented the stirrup. Once you've got a saddle with stirrups, you can ride a horse, control the horse mostly with your legs while firing whatever you're carrying. And they didn't have that. All through the Old Testament period, that didn't exist. But by New Testament times, the Romans appear to have had horsemen, though they mostly used chariots. Okay, so chariots, and then they retreated. From here, this is a look at the northern Hula Valley of Israel. They just went up the valley, scattered in every direction. Go.
When they used chariots in the battles,
Yeah.
what was the counter to them? Would they go against other chariots?
The best thing was another chariot, yeah. Yeah, if there's a bad guy in a chariot, what you need is good guys in chariot. Yeah, yeah.
Go at each other.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't use lances. They normally used archery. And the problem with sending infantry after chariots is that the chariots can move much faster. And the point of the chariots, if they were used correctly, was the flanking movement, or sometimes the penetration movement. If the infantry at the front established a breakthrough, the chariots would go through the middle, and then again it became a flanking, getting behind into the baggage train, that sort of thing. If chariots came up against chariots, that becomes an interesting thing. Typically, chariots didn't really want to do that because that's an even match. And like a Marine drill sergeant is said to have spoken at one time, if you find yourself in an even competition, you've done something wrong. And it's always been true. If you know you're going to have a big fight, try to establish superiority. If you can't do that, negotiate. Otherwise, you can get hurt. And it's just, don't, if you know you're on the losing side of the thing, why would you fight them? Anyway, so the retreat happened because the Canaanites discovered that they were on the losing side of the battle. They'd been surprised. Their people reacted with fear, panic, and they ran. At that point, it's basically over, and the kings were defeated and killed. Hatzor, one of the places that was burned in this particular layer, The burn is, I am told, right here. This is the ashes that were available for us at that time. And whether that is at the 1400 burn level or the 1250 or so burn level is, I think, rather hard to detect. Carbon-14 is no use. And frankly, the objects that we found here are of no use. It was one of the two. The big square stuff that we see is Canaanite construction. So this is a Canaanite city that was burned. And it's likely that Joshua did that, but I can't demonstrate that from this. Okay.
Hey, John,
Yo.
just a little bit I've heard about, I'll put one of the two, I thought it was the earlier one, that the Hatzor destruction was,
Yeah.
a really tough one, but also the idols. They
Yeah.
had stone idols that were viciously and horribly mutilated. And, they're hard stone, and
Yeah.
most people believed in the same gods, they would have been taken home as valuable items. Somebody didn't like them, almost like a divine decree.
Yeah.
And it's also an interesting confirmation,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah, that this was a bad thing. Okay, he's asking about the destruction of idols at Hatzor. There are some indications from the lower city where we found the temples of Hatzor that destroyed idols were a part of that. Fortunately, from the archaeologist's point of view, quite a number of idols survived. And so we're able to, Hatzor was a city with a whole lot of idols. You can't burn them all, and we did find them. The phrase in 1113 that Joshua destroyed or took all of the cities that were on their mounds is a reflection of the size and importance of those cities. He didn't bother with the villages, he took the royal cities. So if there was a kinglet ruling from some city, he took the city. And the mound is the Hebrew word tel. And that's what archaeologists look for. So this map summarizes the situation at the end. You've got a southern campaign and a northern campaign. You notice where the army is. Big battle here in the middle, and then little incursion into the plains. Just a little incursion. But Joshua stayed in the hill country. So he essentially took Judah in the south. Then going north, he went up the Jordan Valley, and most of the fighting was here in the north around Hatzor, which is in the Galilee, in the mountains, along the eastern side of the valley of Jezreel. Afterwards, we're going to see that the people of Israel settled mostly in the hill country and in the Galilee and in the Transjordan, over here in the Gilead and south along the Cisjordan, the modern state of Jordan, between the river and the desert. And that became the core of Israel. The Canaanites continued to live on their mounds. They went back to their big cities. The Israelites, for the most part, didn't like living in big cities. They preferred to live in their villages. So they would get a group of tents, a group of nomadic people keeping sheep, find a place where that was a good thing to do, and set up their city in a circle. And eventually it would develop into an outer wall, but it started out as this circle of tents. And eventually they'd pile up rocks to keep the wind out, and that was where they lived. You can tell the difference between Israelite construction and Canaanite construction every time without a book to check, because the Canaanite construction is great, big, monumental ruins, cut basalt bases for 6-foot diameter pillars, magnificent mosaics, things that were done by professional construction people at enormous cost and paid for by a central government. Israelite construction is one shepherd, one farmer and his family digging a cistern, putting a tent over the top of that, and a little enclosure for their sheep and goats, and they maybe will eventually pile up some uncut rocks. The difference is that the Canaanites were living under a totalitarian system, and so they could pay for stuff like that. And if that's the whole point of government, then the Canaanites succeeded. The Israelites were completely decentralized at this point. There was no king in Israel, and every man did what seemed right in his own eyes. That should have been a good thing, but it turned spectacularly wrong, and that we'll see later. Okay, we'll come back next week and begin setting up the story of Judges. And I have no idea how far we'll get. No idea at all. God bless you. See you next time.